Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Billy Wilder Theater, home of the programs for the UCLA Film and Television Archive. My name is Paul Malcolm. I am a programmer at the archive. Thank you all for coming out to the latest show in the Outfest UCLA Legacy Project screening series. Tonight we continue our guest curator initiative, in which Outfest and the archive ask a number of luminaries from the world of film, television, and moving image media to select works from the Legacy Project collection at the archive, which has a special importance for them and their careers. Before we get started, though, I have to give a special thank you to the Keene Foundation, which supports the Legacy Project series here and so much of the work that the Outfest Legacy Project collection at the archive undertakes. So let's give a round of applause to the Keene Foundation for their essential support of this entire Legacy Project initiative. So tonight we are thrilled to have as our guest curator, writer, producer, and director Angela Robinson. Angela's right there. She'll come up here in a few minutes, say a few words. Angela selected for tonight's screening Little Darlings from 1980, directed by Ronald Maxwell, written by Kimmy Peck and Darlene Young, and starring Tatum O'Neal and Christy McNichol. We are very happy to, let's give a round of applause to the film, too. We are very happy to be presenting Little Darlings on a 35 millimeter archival print. Yes, 35 millimeter. Which was provided to us from Paramount Repertory. We want to thank our colleagues at Paramount for permission to show this print, and our own Todd Weiner here at the archive for making that whole deal possible. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, Paramount and Todd. Okay, so Angela will be joining me on stage for a conversation following the film, so please do stay for that. But now, to tell us more about the Legacy Project collection and to introduce Angela, to say a few words, please help me welcome to the stage Legacy Project Coordinator for Outfest, Brendan Lucas.
Thank you, Paul. My name is Brendan Lucas. I'm the Legacy Project Manager for the Outfest UCLA Legacy Project, which is the only program of its kind in the world dedicated exclusively to the preservation of LGBTQ moving images. So we're so honored to have Angela Robinson with us here tonight, here at the Billy Wilder Theater. And as our Outfest 2018 honoree this summer, Angela helped introduce a 20th anniversary screening of a film that she selected, so we're very lucky to have her back again. That film was Lucas Moodyson's Show Me Love, which we screened from an archival 35 millimeter print from the Legacy Collection, which was at the DGA Theater during Outfest 2018. It was an incredible experience, so again, Angela, thank you for that selection and for making that possible for us. It was a perfect mix of diehard fans and first-timers, so it really encapsulated what the Legacy Project, I think, is all about. And they stayed late into that Friday evening, even when we were down to only one working projector. So, of course, the one 35 millimeter film that we showed during the festival, we could only use one projector at a certain point, but people were thrilled to make it through kind of old school, changing the reels one at a time. So this year's festival also saw a revival screening of one of Angela's earliest films called Chickula Teenage Vampire. Has anyone seen this film? Did anyone see it at the festival? Yeah. Hopefully you will see more of it. It's a fantastic early short of hers. It lives at the Legacy Project at UCLA Film and Television Archive, and it was the version shown was digitized from a tape that was preserved there. So it was a delight to see that film resurrected and charming audiences again. It's a pitch-perfect camp send-up of drive-in horror trailers with a same-sex twist. And with that flash of fangs and a wink of its queer eye, we were able to see an early glimpse, I think, of the remarkable filmmaker that Angela ultimately became. So since music licensing issues and edits for television have made the original theatrically released version of Little Darlings somewhat hard to find, we are really pleased to be screening an archival print of Little Darlings with the special help from Paramount, so thanks to them again. And thank you. If you're curious about Outfest's year-round activities, of which this is one, I just want to let you know very quickly that tomorrow, Outfest Emerging Leaders Council is throwing its annual Stashes and Lashes Bash, which I've been very fortunate to be a part of for a couple years. That's tomorrow night at the Standard at the rooftop, so it's a fundraiser party that helps raise funds for the Outset Fellows filmmakers, which are young filmmakers from 16 to 24 that conceive of, write, produce, and direct a short film. So with your help, we can make that possible. It's a really incredible program. And tomorrow's lineup is almost entirely female DJs, so we're really excited about that. And we're also gearing up for Outfest Fusion LGBT People of Color Film Festival in March. And we're working on our legacy screening series for the rest of 2019. So there's more about that to come early next year, early 2019, as we continue our new tradition of inviting guest curators to explore the legacy collection and introduce audiences to some of their favorite queer cinema here at the Billy Wilder. So we look forward to announcing those guest curators in the coming year. But now I have the great honor of inviting Angela to the stage to introduce Little Darlings and tell us a little bit of what this film means to her. And we'll join her again after the film for a Q&A. So please help me in welcoming to the stage a friend of Outfest and the Legacy Project, Angela Robinson.
Hi, you guys. Die Hard's coming out on a Friday night to see Little Darlings. Fantastic. This was an amazing. This always makes me incredibly happy because I feel like there is a rich tradition of queer cinema, and with so many hours and Netflixes and things and stuff, I feel like the specialness of the film-going experience can sometimes get lost, even to blockbusters, etc. But I feel like part of what's being queer is gathering, and gathering to share experiences. And I've been really interested lately in the female gaze and the idea of female and also queer and also lesbian protagonism, because when female characters of all kinds are allowed to have protagonism, then something really, I think, transgressive and exciting happens. And I remember back before the interwebs and cell phones and all those things, there were video stores. You had to roam through I did. Anyways, I had to roam through the video store, and I kind of, if there's a way to know you're gay but not know you're gay, and not have a word for being gay, but to kind of know it without having language to what you're really, that it's an identity, I'd look at these video boxes. And I remember the video box for Desert Hearts, and they would indicate queerness by this side look that one female character would be giving a different female character, often while holding a man's hand or something. And it was always this kind of subtle look with two other men, like the Imagine Me and You box, or there's these different boxes. If you go back and look at them, it's interesting. But what was great about Little Darlings, I saw it when I was very young, probably too young to be watching it. But this movie could never get made today. It just, no way. It is so frank and bold, and the characters were so rich and had so much agency that it's really a strange time capsule of, I don't even know how it got through, but I feel like there's certain moments in cinematic history where films get through, and this is one of them. So I would love to talk to you all afterwards, but what I think is exciting about the film is how is the qualities that you can't see anymore, and why that was where we were in culture to allow something like this to kind of come through the screens to us. So thanks so much. Bye. Thank you. How'd you guys like that? How great is it?
Yeah, I want to say thank you for picking this, because I don't know that it was a film. I'd seen it years and years and years ago, but I don't know that I would have revisited it had you not picked it. And oh my God, I'm so glad you did. It really is a perennial. I mean, I just was watching it again with fresh eyes, and it was just to me, it just seems like a really magical film. You haven't seen it in 10 years. I'm wondering what you thought about seeing it again.
No, I haven't seen it. I mean, I saw it when I was a kid, and then I don't think you can. I don't think it's on iTunes or Netflix.
Yeah, it's got some serious rights issues because of the music,
is
Brendan said. Yeah, there's music licensing issues that have held it up, so it's really hard to see.
I couldn't. I went and I found a VHS copy online somewhere, and then I had to go find a VHS player, and then I had to like hook it up. I did like all this stuff to kind of try and watch it again. But I remember being so struck by how just the storytelling is so compelling, but like you would just never like they go on a whole adventure to get condoms. I mean, like it's just stuff that you're just like, really? Like they just that was a whole set piece, and it's amazing, but it was actually so honest and true. And then I remember when I saw it back when I found the janky VHS copy, that I couldn't that it was so lovely that they spent all the time like in Act 2, like those scenes with Matt Dillon, you know, where she like is processing what it meant to lose her virginity, and it was so emotional and honest, and she feels like that line, I feel so lonesome, like when he's right there. I mean, it was just so. I don't think I'd ever seen. Usually, there's all these kind of tropes about like how wonderful or silly or. Do you know what I mean? Like the sex comedy, which you think it's gonna be, and then it just kind of goes straight into a drama for a while. That's really poignant.
I went back and looked at some of the reviews from the film when it first came out, and there was an academic essay I found that writing about this film in the context of actually alongside Fast Times at Ridgemont High in the context of virginity on screen, and that back and forth between the sort of adolescent comedy and the sort of very earnest, sort of very sincere discussions of female sexuality in particular really threw critics. I mean, I think they were like...
Yeah, how was it received?
Well, the film kind of... I mean, first of all, Variety... I mean, there's this kind of like back and forth between truth and fantasy. Like, do girls of this age actually think about sex like this? Do they talk about sex like this? I actually got the Variety review. There were Variety critic who's anonymous. I'm not sure. It's obviously a guy, but he wrote, this is such an odd sentence. For males of previous generations, and possibly some females, it's hard to say whether such sexual blatantness among otherwise innocent 15-year-old girls is true or not. Femme scripters Kimmy Peck and Deline Young obviously consider their plot plausible.
That's amazing. Obviously, consider the plot plausible.
Yeah, and they were. I mean, some critics
put that up somewhere. That's amazing.
Some critics felt it was too earnest. One of the critics, I think, from Newsweek described it as it was a fine comedy that then became too moralistic at the end. Other critics felt it was really exploitational of the young actresses and this whole idea of a virginity contest. But it was really the mixing of comedy and sort of earnest adolescent feelings. It just kind of, if it's not, it's either got to be meatballs or it's got to be something really
that's what's so
weepy.
Interesting about it is the tone is like really good, like a camp comedy, and then it goes into this very kind of. But I love that it can exist in both spheres. That's what's so. And actually rewatching it, which I feel like it's really interesting. Like, I just watched it now as a lesbian who doesn't kind of know what to do with her sexuality, or just like this basic, I don't know, it's not even like closeted. It just seemed like a kind of like pre-out lesbian, like figuring out that she doesn't actually want to do this, or that it's not interesting to her or something, like, and you can just kind of watch it with Christy her Angel's character just as gay, and it just like it's actually a much more like straightforward reading of the film, which is really like that. And I think it's interesting, even when it came out, that it was totally embraced. It's like Christy McNichol and Jodie Foster were both like, you just there wasn't kind of, I mean, there was like, oh, maybe they're gay or maybe they're not, but how you kind of read lesbian sexuality, even when it was trying to like not be, right. Or the film was trying to not be, but it was so. But all the signifiers were so. I mean, from the first shot where she comes in smoking and kind of tough.
Yeah, no, I think there's so much depth and resonance to that last freeze frame of them together when she says, "This is my." she says, "This is my friend," and then she says, "This is my best friend." You feel like there's a lot more going under the surface of that moment. It seems.
Because people really remember this movie as being, it's interesting. My memory, like being a queer movie, in that everybody would say, "Oh, the chemistry between the two of them was so incredible,"
Right.
and actually, in my memory, like they spend less screen time than I remember.
Together.
Like you really remember that last
Right.
scene. You remember the first scene on the bus where they like beat each other up, and then the last scene when they're best friends, and then when they like come together on the swings. But it's interesting. They're like, even now I was like, really? Like best friend? Okay. But I was totally moved by it. I mean, it's great.
Yeah, no, it's a very moving film. One of the things that I was thinking about too was Professor Marston and the Wonder Woman. So much about cultural smuggling in a way, bringing ideas into the culture sort of subversively through genre, through ways that people don't. I mean, that have to be read as subtext in a way. And this film was written by two women, directed by a man, but it also feels like this film has a lot of subversive qualities to it that I think at the time critics just didn't know what to make of, but an audience discovered it and found it and made it their own in that way. Was that sort of your experience of it when you found it in the video store? Was that when you first saw it?
Yeah. I mean, actually, when I first saw it, I mean, I feel like there were all these films that you saw that spoke to you as a queer person, and you just embraced. And there was this. I was talking. I mean, I didn't make this up, but the idea of the lesbian gaze, like that you just had to, like you would double look at somebody, or you just do like before. There were like everywhere from like the 50s through the 80s, where it was just you'd look at somebody too long, or you'd acknowledge somebody somehow, which like before everything was so latent, everything was subtext. So you were always looking for everything to try to read into it.
Right.
So this was a big film that you'd revisit, and you'd be like, "Oh, Christy McNichol, of course,"
Right.
like, and it'd be almost like a sex symbol that you'd claim. And then later, all these people came. Even Cynthia Nixon's in there.
Right.
Like, it's hilarious.
So I gather you first saw the film on video. You rented it from a video store, or did you see it?
Yeah.
Because the film when it first came out was rated R. When
I was
Meatballs
too
and
young,
other summer camp movies were PG. I mean, I was surprised when I was doing some research to find that Meatballs was PG and this film was R, and I feel like it should be the exact opposite. But did you feel, I mean, just in general, the video stores, there was nobody carding you. You could kind of, I mean, I remember growing up in video stores and cable, especially too, watching a lot of stuff on cable.
No, it was always like HBO. You'd
Yeah,
watch like at
yeah.
your friend's house late at night, and they played.
I
Like,
think I first saw
racy
this film on
movies.
cable, but did you feel like, okay, so, you can't go see an R-rated movie, but you can go to the video store and you can, maybe that cover picture sort of calls to you, you bring it home and it's did you find that like the video store was a place that you could go and find these kind of signals and these stories you were looking for?
Definitely. I was always like roaming through. I miss the video store. I feel like it was just great. You'd go with your friends and you'd argue over what you were going to see, and then you'd it was a whole experience unto itself. But I do feel like you could kind of, then later in my Kim's Video in New York,
Right.
that was one of my jobs, getting myself through grad school. So then you had sections, but I'd roam and I'd try to anything that had two women or two, like there were these kind of signifiers that you'd roam around and look for, and then you'd rent surreptitiously.
Right.
Kind of, try not so your parents wouldn't find out. But I do feel like there's this kind of inquisitive excavation of. I just made this film called Professor Marston and the Wonder Woman, and it was about the kind of poly family at the center of the Wonder Woman character. It's about the guy who created Wonder Woman, who lived in a kind of polyamorous relationship with his wife and their lover. And it was a very queer story to me, but it had to be excavated because there was all these things that I feel like are signifiers that now you could be like, oh yes, of course, that like they slept in the same bed for 40 years after he died. So, but before that would be, that didn't count as queer. It would just be a fact, that now in a kind of modern context, you can kind of go back and kind of claim things. And I feel like this film is one of them.
So the film also is interesting. I mean, you talked about whether, you mentioned earlier, like maybe this film probably couldn't get made today. One of the things that I thought when I was watching it again, was how much screen time is given over to just adolescent women. That's it. There's just girls talking for 20, 30 minutes of the movie, and there's no men anywhere in this, even no
That's what's
adults.
crazy.
There's no adults anywhere in the movie either. And that sense that, this movie, I mean, every other coming of age summer camp story is the boys spying on the girls. It's the boys looking for the girls. And here it's completely upended, and the boys are almost completely absent in this film, which is really quite striking about it even today.
Yeah, that's what I feel about the protagonism, is that it just wouldn't, at some point, I mean, maybe there's kind of few and far between, but they're almost Disneyfied, in a way that but this seems really wrong. But you just literally, you're not used to spending all that time watching girls think. I mean, they even all had different characteristics. It was just, that is just a staple of the boy version of this genre. But it's just rare that you see that much screen time.
There's almost even visually, some of the visual language, when they're on the condom run, when she first sees Matt Dillon, she's visually higher than him, talking down to him from the bus, and so he's sort of in this kind of I mean, it's they thought Romeo and Juliet gets talked about a lot in this movie, but maybe I'm overanalyzing it, but she's definitely she's up in the bus balcony, but she's commanding that whole situation.
No, she does. She checks out. They do the looks him up and down. They have a shot of his ass. They're not even being subtle. And then she's rowing the whole time. I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, exactly.
The last time, she's hey, but she is so active in this very forward, almost gender bendy for the times way, where she's hey, you, I'm gonna go. She goes out to seduce him, and which is the staple. It's the opposite of the staple of the camp comedy, which is always the guys trying to lose their virginity and going out and having to find the girl and figure out how.
He's
to
the object of her
He's the
desire.
object, yes.
And then he's an object she probably at the end may not even be interested in after when it's all over.
She's not. She's I thought the breakup scene was really, she was just it just won't work. Yeah. And I was just why? You're going to be at camp a little while longer. She's just we started in the middle. And I was just because you're in love with Tatum O'Neal, obviously. So.
Yeah. There's a couple of other little moments that I don't obviously didn't remember from when I first saw it, but the girls are Armand Assante, who plays the sort of, he's the suave, camp counselor. There's these little scenes where these girls are making fun of him during the archery scene. She's oh, macho, and then when he's doing the folk song at the end, the girls sitting in front of him, making fun of him, the obvious the male sex symbol in the film was being mocked by the girls in the camp.
It was so subversive. I really would love to talk to the screenwriters, and what their experience must have been making, and how, whether they intentionally Trojan horsed it, which I've done a lot in my career, where you kind of you put in look over here, so you can kind of do what you want, and I also wonder whether they were aware of the queerness going in. Do you mean as writers, or as they kind of went through, or if that was not on their radar? And also, it's interesting because homophobia is what basically launches the whole thing.
Oh yeah,
I
exactly.
mean that if you don't do this, you're going to be gay, and that's the kind of pejorative, which fear of that sends them into this thing that neither of them really wants to do, and then they realize. But it could also be read as we were stupid to be so scared of that.
Right.
By the end, I mean, she's basically we were really stupid to kind of give into that fear.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a sort of an emergent awareness in that scene where she says we were stupid to we were really dumb, or whatever she said. I can't remember the exact line, but this awareness that is not the awareness that we maybe or maybe mainstream audiences were expecting. You know what I'm saying? The awareness is something more about, we were stupid to fall into this competition, but we were stupid to be afraid of this threat, this fear of, homophobia.
Yeah, the bully.
Yeah, yeah.
And they're also really frank. Like in the beginning, Tatum O'Neal's like, I'm straight, but so and so, and I was just like, okay, 15-year-old Tatum, like so, there. But I mean, you buy it because she's a Manhattan kid or something. But I'm just like that girls that age would never be written that way. I mean, maybe in an indie. I'm not saying not ever, but that usually when it combine the kind of camp comedy tone, like that's what's like. I feel like there's indies that maybe kind of go to this space, but which is occupied in the cultural consciousness of being like a studio movie with stars at the time who, with the relative budget, like that it was kind of accorded all these things and then was able to be this other thing.
Well, yeah, well, there's space in it. I guess there's enough ambiguity in its imagery that you can read it. You can find this other reading of it that's really interesting.
And there's a really straightforward reading.
Yeah,
too.
Right.
Totally.
Yeah, I suppose someone could read Debs as a straightforward spy thriller comedy.
I don't think they could.
But it's really interesting the way that you're kind of doing the same operation, but kind of like right out front. You're using genre to genre is this kind of structure within which you create a lesbian relationship. That's right out in front.
Totally.
Yeah.
No, that was always to try to find different ways to send up genre to kind of that. Like Debs is a very Trojan horse film because it's so like shiny and happy that you just kind of like go with it, especially at the time when it came out. But it's interesting what you said about the rating, because it's always been notoriously like, but I'm a Cheerleader first got an NC-17, and it was because, and a lot of the ratings, and they've relaxed now, but like But I'm a Cheerleader did, it's like fear of female pleasure.
Right.
Like that's it got rated NC-17 because there was a shot of Natasha Lyonne and just her face, and she was masturbating, but like below frame. You didn't see anything. You just saw her face. And they were like, no, NC-17. And you're just like, that was the reason why. So I feel like there's almost this really reactionary fear of even like that quote, like it maybe is plausible that teenage girls could want.
So I'm going to turn it over to the audience for questions in a minute, but I have one more question. So when you first saw the film, did you see it with a group of your friends when you first saw it? And then was there a point when you realized that there were other people that had this reading that you had when you first saw the film, and then you realized that there's a community building around this film, or my community is responding to this film in this way, like that your reading actually was the reading of others, and then that was a connection that you were able to build?
I feel like I came out in college, and then you were got to compare notes.
Okay, right.
To kind of there was a community and there was other people, and then you'd kind of quickly on, and there was, I mean, by the time this movie had a kitschy quality that people re-embraced. That almost like the serious dramas people would watch but disavow. Like Desert Heart and stuff like that, which I love. I always love that movie. But but that this kind of occupied a space where you could claim it, but also it was a little. It's not a campy movie at all, but the kind of re-embracement.
It's a camp movie, but not a campy movie.
It's a camp movie, but it's not a campy movie. And I remember there was some. It was like what was the Foxes? Do you mean that Jodie?
Yeah.
Do you mean there was something about lesbians when they were kids making movies that became a thing? But yes, you did finally be oh yes, Christy McNichol, that's somebody. You kind of found gay icons or lesbian icons for yourself in a specific context, and you just kind of single them out.
So we have mics on either side, but if you have questions, just raise your hand. We'll bring you a mic. We'll go from there. Any questions?
Or just comments.
Or comments about the film itself. We'll have a conversation.
Up there.
Okay.
Hi. I saw a showing of this film, I think it was a year or two ago, and I think it was a UCLA event or something. I thought it was here, but it was something associated with UCLA, but the writers were there.
Oh, yeah? What
And
did they
there
say?
were a lot of gay people, LGBT, everything. And people said this is a gay icon. I mean, this is just like such a gay film. Did you intend to make it that way?
Yeah.
And they said, not at all.
Not at all,
We're
zero
flattered,
zilch?
But like they were like, are you sure? People are like, it's so they're like, not at all. But we're so flattered that you said that.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was very interesting. And also, Mr. Marston and the Wonder Woman was awesome. I saw that.
Oh, thank you. Thanks
Yeah.
very much.
It was great. I loved it. Thank you.
Any other comments from the audience? Are there any other films from this period that you found in the video store, or that as you were growing up that sort of resonated with you in the same way? Like, is there a canon that you look back at, your personal canon?
There is. I feel like I keep showing them. Show Me Love.
Yeah.
And, which is an incredible film. I'm trying to think. There was Go Fish, Desert. I mean, this is earlier. Do you know what I mean? But I feel like there's kind of a queer canon. And I always would find, even like, a friend of mine divided all movies into the cozy feeling and the empty feeling, which is basically like why people go to the movies, is either to get the cozy feeling or the empty feeling. And it has no bearing on how good or bad the movie is. So it's just like Requiem for a Dream is the emptiest movie that you could ever. Very good film, but and argue like this is actually it gets kind of empty at the end. I'm trying to think of like, it used to be like Breakfast Club was a really cozy movie, or like Sneakers or something. Like, there were these things. So Little Darlings was a cozy movie. Weirdly, Gia, remember that? Like, there were these kind of fun, kitschy movies that you would just watch for fun, and they'd play them in the clubs and stuff like that. And so I'm trying to think of like what else. Really, then there was this kind of like great slew of The Incredibly True Adventures of Two Girls in Love. Do you mean like there started to be more and more like deliberately queer films, and I made Debs because I really wanted a film that didn't exist when I was a teenager.
Right.
Do you mean that was just like, that was fun, but that was just expressly gay? You didn't have to do the work or reinterpret it or kind of do the double thing. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting though, because it's fun, it's subversive, it's countercultural in a way to have these kinds of alternative readings through private readings of but it is work, and why should you have to work for your pleasure,
I was
right?
just like sick of doing all the work. I was like, could we just have like text
Right.
instead of subtext? So
Yeah.
or to like retell the stories. Like, I would love to see this movie now where they just hook up. Do you know, like, or I was just like, got tired of doing the work of having to kind of like have my own version running simultaneously in the film.
Would you remake this film?
Yeah, that'd be
Would
awesome.
you, well, good. Why?
But I feel like they, maybe now, there's now, a begrudging push to kind of reassert women's voices, people of color, LGBTQ. It's queer films kind of occupy. I'm not sure where they are in the kind of current movement. Do you like? I had a theory. This is a pet theory that weirdly digital and like logo kind of killed the queer film boom, because it was always like there was this kind of slew of movies from like Gregoraki and The Living End through, and I feel like Debs was like the tail end of that kind of wave of queer cinema from like go fish through, and I was like the 2003 or something was the. I was just beginning, but it was kind of end of that wave. But suddenly there was like, you have a channel, or you have these things or something, but also didn't spend money. But it used to be all the mini majors would have a couple of slots, which they felt it was their mission to kind of make queer movies as part of just the slate of movies they were making. Right. And suddenly they didn't feel like, they were like, oh good, you have a place to go, but then the place to go didn't really kind of foster. And so then it became a much more kind of catch as catch can. So I feel like queer cinema as a movement hasn't really been, there's been television and there's been anything, but it hasn't had a kind of cohesive movement since that time, which kind of bums me out.
Yeah, well, that '90s independent scene was just exploding with all kinds of voices and visions.
Todd
and
Haynes, Cholodenko, and all sorts of
Todd Haynes is someone. I mean, he sort of helped launch that whole wave, and now he's doing sort of like Wonder Wheel. I think Wonder Wheel was that the film he did? Like, I mean, he's doing very. I mean, I would sort of read that as a sort of mini major, independent film, but very. It always felt very different from where he was before. But then there's other films that he's doing that are in that mini major category. Carol and things like that. But it does feel like maybe TV is where it's with the L Word and things like shows like that.
That was
where you can really sustain a long term sort of.
That was really. I remember actually. I got the call about like when it was the first. They shot the pilot of the L Word, and Guinevere Turner, who some of you may know, she called me and she was like, "They're making a lesbian queer as folk," and I was like, "No way!" Like, they never will. Like, it was just like a totally shocking idea. Right. So, I do feel like there's, and now it's really funny to me because like young queer women are coming to me like L Word's retro, so I feel like their L Word to them is My Little Darlings, right? Right. Like, so it's weird where they're like, I went and like my assistant is this 23-year-old, USC lesbian, who's wonderful. But I like went to clear out my storage locker and I found like some paraphernalia. I found like this coaster that said like, "You're looking very Shane today" or something. It was just weird. And she was like, "Whoa!" And I was like, "Do you want this? Like this artifact?" You know what I mean? But it's like, that's like their callback. So I feel like it's just something that people do.
Do you feel, sort of maybe following on that, in this particular moment, are you seeing an opening for more LGBTQ voices or women of color directors in terms of like getting projects started? I mean, Professor Marston took you 8 years to get it. Took you 8 years to get it off the ground, but it's such a fantastic film, though. I mean, do you feel like
It took 4 years to research and 4 years to get made, so it didn't really. Still.
All right, but 4 years to get made, and it did very much feel like a film of its moment, a film of its time when it came out, because obviously the blockbuster, had come out that same year, but you feel it's getting easier? Or
I'm kind of in a wait and see.
Are you more hopeful than you might have been previously?
I am. I feel like there's a kind of cumulative pressure, and I feel like all of these, call it like myth busting. Do you mean that only like with Black Panther and Wonder Woman and all these things that they said, like it took Wonder Woman a decade and they were like, it's never gonna work, and then boom, and then, but like, the DC movie, like, flops. So
Batman versus Superman.
I'm just saying that I do feel like things are disrupted, gets overused, but I have hope that I'm interested to see if there is a queer cinema or if it's just kind of scattershot, and then if so, where it will go. Right. Like, I'm interested to see if movies will. I was really interested with Orange is the New Black because it was the kind of first wave of television characters where they were bi or queer or even gay, who knows, But that was just the given of the protagonist, and it wasn't necessarily an issue,
Right.
and they could just then go on with the movie. So the idea of, I remember a long time ago we had this conversation like beyond the coming out story, like what are the stories? And I feel like those are starting to emerge, like where there's a gay character, and then they do other things besides deal with. And Professor Marston, I made a big deal about the conflict between the characters wasn't, oh my God, I feel. It wasn't about their love for each other or how they felt. They didn't have issues. They just loved who they loved.
Right.
And their problem was with society. How do they have a job? How do they raise a family? How do they do these other things? But the problem wasn't like, I'm a bad person or I feel shame or anything. It was just that was the given, and you can talk about and move past that to other things.
Right. So it's like that trajectory from like something that you can identify as a new queer cinema, and this is this radical, revolutionary thing, and now it's just kind of a little bit more dispersed, or if not dispersed, but less identifiable as a movement. It's just people making films about their lives.
Well, we'll just see if there's enough of a kind of conglomerate. I'm just interested to see if will be a new wave.
Right.
I feel like there needs to be, but there are, it's pushing in all sorts of different ways.
And sort of not to pat ourselves on the back, but one of the things about the Legacy Project is to make sure that
pat
ourselves on the back. One of the things about the Legacy Project and the Legacy Project screening series is so that younger filmmakers or just younger queer people in general have these images, these films, these stories will always, historically, those callback films will always have a place on the big screen. Mm-hmm. How essential do you think that is for you or for the next generation of filmmakers to have that?
I think it's fascinating because I'm always looking back and I find queer history fascinating, but I also feel like we don't keep it. We're like LA. Like LA feels like it has like no history. It just kind of bulldozes it and like paves over with a new thing. Mm-hmm. And I feel like I was just recently I'm researching a screenplay that I'm doing. And it takes place in Manhattan in the late 80s and early 90s. And I was like, I went to research people. They were like, oh, this club and this club. And I was like, oh, wow. Like, this is just history it's history now. Like, it should be documented. Like, we should write down that these places did. And I talked to this amazing woman named Phyllis Jenkins, who's an 85-year-old black lesbian who lived in the West Village for 60 years. And then she told me this insane detail where she said, when you were in the clubs, they would blink the lights twice, and you would run from your partner and to a opposite sex partner and start dancing with them because that was the signal the police were going to raid. And I was like, wow. Do you like that detail of just the lights are blinking twice and then everybody would like run from holding the hand of their boyfriend or girlfriend, and then they'd run and fake dance when the police came. And I was just like, but it's just stuff like that is just lost.
I'm also trying to imagine the choreography of that, like a whole
I know,
dance club, just switching partners.
It's like musical chairs.
Yes.
It's like they put on the music.
This seems like a scene that should be in the
It's
film.
gonna
Whatever
be
film
in
you're
the
working
film,
on.
and I'm going to find it because it's such a great scene.
Yeah.
But yes, I do feel like that it's incredibly essential to look back and to keep our history and to acknowledge that is what it is, because for so long it has been deliberately erased.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, Angela, thank you so much for
Thank
joining
you,
us here.
guys.
It's an
Thanks for
incredible
coming.
honor.